أما بعد فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى وقوله الحق وهو أصدق القائلين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إذ تلقونه بألسنتكم وتقولون بأفواهكم ما ليس لكم به علم وتحسبونه هينا وهو عند الله عظيم صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوات بجماعة. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Just recited the verse number 15 of Surah Noor. Inshallah, we'll be discussing 15, 16, 17, and 18th verse tonight, as they're all pretty much are focusing on the same topic, and that is the topic which is continuing from before, spreading of the rumor and the controlling of the tongue. And it talks about, it says, when you were receiving it on your tongues, and you were mouthing someone of which you had no knowledge, supposing it to be a light matter, while it was a grave matter with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Again, keeping all the discussions that we've already had in your mind, then you'll be able to understand this particular ayah, and the concept of the event of ifk that we discussed the other day, and prior to that, the whole discussion on adultery that was discussed. Keeping all of that in mind, here it comes to the point when that slander or when that rumor was spread, this is the outcome of it, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is admonishing and He's addressing the mu'mineen and muslimeen as to what they should have done in those situations and what they should not have done in those situations. So the points that we learned from this particular ayah is that tongue is the only organ in the entire life of mankind which doesn't get tired of being overused. You look at your eyes, they get weak. Look at the ears, start to wear down. Look at your body, it becomes fragile. You know, it's the hands and the feet and everything else. Heart, for example, even the internal organs, if you want to look at it. Everything, as the time passes, gets weak. Only tongue is something which does not get weak. Remains the same as it was, in the beginning, in the youth ages, or when, you were going through your middle ages and towards the end. And if it doesn't increase, if it's not increasing, it's not decreasing either. So it remains pretty much the same. So we see that it's a small structure, but it can be a cause of big sins and crimes. We all know about that. The way an unbeliever, by stating one sentence, becomes a Muslim, saying Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah, becomes pure and becomes a Muslim. Similarly, a Muslim by stating kufr or by denying the ahkam of the religion becomes an unbeliever and najis. So we see how quickly this tongue can either put you on the realm of Islam or could bring you out of the realm of Islam. So tongue is capable of purifying us if used for truthfulness, dhikr, supplication, and advice, useful advice, and as well as useful criticism and constructive criticism. On the contrary, it is also capable of spreading hatred, causing disputes when used for falsehood, lying, and as well as taunting. How families can break apart only because of this tongue, because of certain rumors that were spread in regards to wife or in regards to the husband or in regards to other family members, how it deteriorates the family structure as well as their relationship. So there are certain roots of why danger of the tongue is superior than the danger of all the other vices that exist. Not just the vices of other organs, but also, other evils that exist from drinking, from, other topics that we talked about earlier in this surah. We see that it usually has roots attached with other ethical illnesses. And for example, wrong education and only education without proper tarbiyat, lack of self-purification, socializing with the corrupt and the deviant is also one of the reasons why this tongue is associated with it and it leads to such corruptions. There are 6 reasons why tongue's effects are more than the effects of others, or why tongue is more affected than the others. We see that tongue has always been in the possession of insan as opposed to other elements of sin. So drinking or other, sins that are out there, adultery and whatnot, were not always in the possession of mankind. But this tongue has always been there for you, and therefore it is, when it's in your possession, you use it the way you want it. And therefore, drugs and gambling and music and alcohol, they're something which, came about later on. But this tongue has always been in your possession, and therefore it's one of the root causes of these evils. Secondly, we see there isn't any cost of using this tongue. When you want to do some other crime or some other evil, you have to go out of your way and do it. But doing a crime and a sin with this tongue, it does not take much. All it takes is opening of the mouth. So usually other sins have expenses alongside with it. So sometimes those expenses throw you off. Say, okay, forget about it. I'm not going to do it. But this tongue, it does not have any expenses attached with it. So you go ahead and do it. Thirdly, tongue is a tool which is available for everyone. And some people might not, but available for everyone. Whereas other sins are not available, such as consuming interest or others, is only for ones who are wealthy or who possess some sort of wealth. Fourthly, sinning through tongue is taken for granted. Its grandeur has been broken, and that itself is an element which promotes sins in the society. For example, if a person was asked to stand outside over here, outside of this masjid, or on a street, with his or her clothes stripped, especially a Muslim. We're not talking about non-Muslims. So anyone over here, if you were to ask them, can you strip your clothes and stand outside over here? Nobody will be agreeing to do so. It'll be an act of shame and integrity of human beings, all of us, mu'mineen, in front of each other, is at stake. So nobody will be willing to, put anything on stake to go ahead and, stand without any clothes outside over here where people can look at them. But if we feel a little bit of dignity and honor in ourselves, we won't do this. But ask the same people to make others strip them of their clothes with their tongue, by doing backbite, by lying and associating a rumor about them, they will go ahead and do it without any hesitation. So when you open your mouth in regards to someone else falsely, you're basically stripping them of their clothes. Where something which you do not want to do yourself, but you're easily able to do it for other individuals. This is where we have a very beautiful hadith, and I've quoted it before, and so some of you might remember this hadith. It is by Hazrat Isa alayhi salatu wasalam, that he said, قَالَ لِأَصْحَابِهِ, he said to his companions, أَرَأَيْتُمْ لَوْ أَنَّ أَحَدَكُمْ مَرَّ بِأَخِيهِ فَرَآ ثَوْبَهُ قَدْ انْكَشَفَ عَنْ بَعْضِ أَوْرَتِهِ. He said, if one of you were passing by and you saw your fellow brother or, brethren in faith with his clothes, sort of disclosing his body parts, and that to his private body parts. He said, أَكَانَ كَاشِفًا عَنْهَا كُلَّهَا أَمْ يَرُدُّ عَلَيْهَا. Will you go ahead and expose him furthermore or remove more? If this little bit was exposed, you're going to go ahead and remove the whole thing to expose further? Or are you going to go ahead and cover it up? Right away, everybody unanimously replied by saying, قَالُوا بَلْ نَرُدُّ عَلَيْهَا. Definitely we will cover it up. We don't want fellow brother to be sleeping. Well, obviously when we're sleeping, we don't know what's going on. So, if you're sleeping in public, if something might be exposed, what do you do in this situation? Everybody over here will give the same answer what the companions of Hazrat Isa ﷺ gave. Definitely, بَلْ نَرُدُّ عَلَيْهَا, we will cover him up. قَالَ كَلَّا بَلْ تَكْشِفُونَ. No, not only that you won't cover him up, rather you will expose him furthermore to the sight of the public. Right away, people understood that Hazrat Isa was not talking about the example of a man laying with the body parts and private parts exposed. Rather, he was only talking about and giving this as an analogy about when we expose the secrets of others. When someone has shared a secret with us and we go ahead and let it out to others, in other words, if that secret is exposing that individual, we are further exposing that individual. So when you hear something about someone, instead of spreading it around, and these days it's very easy to spread things around with the social media that is in our possession, it's very easy to, with the one click, you can spread the news. No, put a lid onto it, stop from spreading furthermore. Fifthly, we see insan can perform multiple sins through this tongue. And there are about 20 sins that have been counted which can be performed directly through this tongue. Sixthly, we see sins through our tongues have social aspect, whereas other organs are within themselves. For example, listening to music which is corrupted, music which is not allowed, which is haram, for example, or looking at non-mahram, or looking at scenes which are not allowed for us to see, has ill effects for the individual himself. But lying, backbiting, blaming, falsely dishonoring, and not performing amr bil maruf wa nahi anil munkar will affect the whole society, and therefore we see the causes and the ills of this tongue are far more superior than the causes and the vices of the other body parts and other sins. Salawat bheji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Some of the messages that we learn from this particular ayah says accepting whatever comes out of the mouth without research is reprehensible. So don't just take it right away. Ayat of Surah Hujurat also mentions the same thing. That back in the day, and even today, people will, take the news from anyone. Anyone who would bring any news, they will accept it. So imagine if a child came to you saying, there's a fire. You'll be listening, taking it, seriously. You'll go out and look if there's a fire. And if you find that there's no fire, second time this child comes, it still might be, convincing enough. You might go out and look at it again. But when the third time you see this child say the same thing, now you have lost all the credibility, or he has lost all the credibility. You won't pay attention. Even if he or she was telling the truth, you will not listen to him. Similarly, when back in the day also, and even today, today with more advanced methodology, back in the day it was individuals coming in and giving the news from other cities and other places and what was happening. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed an ayah. He says, if a fasiq, a person who openly commits sins, comes and gives you a news, fatabayyanu. Ponder over this news. Do not take it as it is. Rather ponder, research over it, and then act according to it. Because if you, and then so people say, well, then we shouldn't take news from it. I say, no. Look at the word that Allah is using over here. He said, use the word fasiq. If there was an adil individual coming to you with the news, yes, take it right away. Don't, dwell over it and think about it. No, take it. But when a fasiq is bringing you this news, tabayyanu, ponder, research about it, think about it, and then go ahead and take the action. Today we see that is happening a lot as well with the media around us. A lot of false news reaching us. You don't know what to believe and what not to believe, so we go ahead and give ears to whatever comes in play. We see that speech must be based on knowledge. Taquluna is Quran. This ayat said, Taquluna bi afwahikum ma laysa lakum bihi ilm. They say with their fam, or with their fam is the singular, afwa is the plural of that, with their lips, ma laysa lakum bihi ilm, that which they do not have the knowledge of. A lot of time we're, sticking our neck into things which we do not have the knowledge of. I'm not an expert in, medicine. Why am I sticking my neck into the medical related issues? Right away, if someone says, I have this or I have that illness, right away we're giving them, reason, or giving them some antidote. We're telling them, take this medicine, take that medicine, do this. We know of these things that our, grandfather or whatever has taught us, and this is very effective. Yes, if that doesn't have any side effects, go ahead and listen to them. But you wouldn't be taking, life-threatening matters from anyone who's a non-expert. Similarly, when it comes to other areas of the life as well, we should take this from those who are expert. And usually we derive our attention towards when a lot of people are raising questions in the mas'ala of deen. Deen is the most important aspect of your life. Yes, you have health, you have wealth, you have family, you have children, all of those things are there. But deen should be the topmost priority. When it comes to health, you don't take it from non-expert. When it comes to finances, you don't take it from non-expert. When it comes to other areas of life, children's education, you don't just go to anyone. You make sure that they study and learn from the experts and whatnot. Why is it when it comes to religion that we rely on those sources which are not expert in this religion? And this is where the concept of taqleed comes into play. When we follow in the absence of our 12th Imam, Imam Mahdi Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Farajuhu Sharif. In his absence, we have these maraja, these scholars who have spent, their entire life studying and then teaching these ulum and these sciences. Why not take their word over what my mind thinks? I say, well, this doesn't make sense. These old folks, they don't know what they're talking about sitting in these small little towns. We are over here. We know what the world is going through with the technology that is out there when it comes to the moon sighting, when it comes to all the other areas. Forget about what Ayatollah Sistani is saying. Forget about what all the other Maraji are saying. No, we take their expert advice in this. Why? Because they definitely are experts when it comes to the matters of fiqh. We might be looking at it from one aspect of it, which is just the technical aspect of it, but they are looking at it from all the other areas which must be also taken under consideration. Salawat Biji Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. Questioning people's dignity and honor should not be taken lightly. That's why I said, وَتَحْسَبُونَهُ هَيِّنًا. Do not take it lightly. They used to take it lightly. When this question was raised in regards to the wife of Rasulullah, they took it lightly and they spread it around all they wanted to. So no, don't take it lightly. When it comes to any individual, we talked about the honor and the respect of a mu'min yesterday, and we compared it with the honor and the respect of Kaaba. The Kaaba being, the house of Allah, Baytullah, having so much honor and respect, but Rasulullah is comparing the Kaaba with the mu'min and giving mu'min priority over it. Fourthly, we see Allah decides which sin is major and which is minor. In the case of slanders and rumors in regards to other people, Allah says, Indallahi azim. He said the word that these things near Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are azim. So do not take them lightly. Here we'll mention a few cures rather for the deadly disease. Even if one of these cures are adopted and utilized in its entirety, one will be able to come out of the illnesses of the tongue that are out there. First is sukut, silence. We are silent in areas where we shouldn't be. But when it comes to being silent where we should not open our mouth, that is not the case. So silence is definitely a therapy which can keep us safe from many of the vices of this tongue. We find in many traditions the command to keep silence where it is not necessary to speak. Hence, more you speak, the higher chances of making mistakes and committing sins will come in handy. So therefore we see there's a hadith from Ma'asum in which it says, لا يسلم أحد من الذنوب حتى يحزن لسانه. No one will be safe from sinning unless they hide their tongues in a vault. So as soon as you open your mouth, right away you're prone to committing the sin. We can deduce from this hadith that the tongue is the key to all vices and sins. This hadith was a prophet, used the plural tense of az-dhunub. He did not say ad-damb. He said az-dhunub. Alif lam being istighraq, encompassing everything. Dhunub being the plural, that means everything is emerging from this one little structure that Allah has put in our mouth. Here, no one should think staying silent in places where it is wajib for us to speak. No, that's not the case. We're talking about places where it is not your duty to say anything. Stay out of it. It's better be safe than to say something and then get in trouble. What's required is taraku ma la ya'ni. Avoid saying which is not useful. And especially as we keep on reminding ourselves in this month of Ramadan, this is something which can be practiced. Yes, fasting for sukut is haram. You cannot make a vow that I won't speak to anyone today, and that is haram. That if you fast with that intention, Hazrat Maryam did that in her time. He said, I will not speak to insiya, I will not speak to mankind all day, and that was something which was accepted in the time of Hazrat Maryam. In our Shariat, in our fiqh, it is not allowed. You cannot say, I vow not to speak to anyone and I fast of that. That is not allowed. But definitely practice that during the month of Ramadan, as it is, where there's lack of energy in us because we're fasting, going through the long hours of abstention from food and drink and all the other things which gives us energy. Therefore, there's little energy for us to say anything. But you see that I every day come here and stand in front of you for half hour and rant and on. So that is some energy that I have to generate from somewhere in order for me to speak every day. But nonetheless, we lose this energy. So how do you can practice this very easily, this sukut very easily throughout the month of Ramadan, because we are already practicing it. We are already ready to it to an extent. That's why Amirul Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam said, he said, Al-mar'u makhbu'un tahta lisanihi. Insan is hidden beneath his tongue. Because if he opens his mouth, his virtues and vices are recognized. As long as I'm staying put and not saying anything, you don't know if I'm good or bad. But as soon as I open up my mouth, you'll understand my level of knowledge by my talk, the shallowness in my speech, or the philosophical discussions that I might have, or you might understand my goodness or the badness that is in me. So as soon as you open the mouth, these things become apparent. But remember this, silence is a sign of intellect. This is why Amir al-Mu'mineen in another place said, إِذَا تَمَّ الْأَقْلُ نَقَصَ الْكَلَامِ. When the wiser the man is, the less talkative he or she will be. The wiser you get, the more wisdom comes in, the less you speak. You let everybody else speak around and you remain quiet. And then when it's needed, you go ahead and say one sentence and it is over and beyond all the things that were said for many, many hours. So this is where, we see that when the aql of insan reaches its perfection, his speech decreases. In other words, there's a close and direct connection between aql and the kalam, and the speech, intellect, and the speech of mankind. Both of these are two scales of the balance, as one of which aql rests and goes higher, the other one will definitely going to go ahead and dip lower. You imagine this mizan, this tarazu that we have. If one is going to go higher, the other one is definitely going down. And that's the relationship with the aql and the speech. Salawat biji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Second cure. First is sukut, silence. Silence is a cure for many things. So one of the cures of staying away from the vices of the tongue is sukut. Just don't say anything. When you don't say anything, you're keeping yourself away from rumors, you're keeping yourself away from backbite, you're keeping yourself away from all the vices of this tongue. Sukut, silence. But sometimes the sukut also has meaning. So meaningful sukut then also goes ahead and translates into other things. And so even by remaining quiet, you can go ahead and say 1,000 words. Secondly, think before you talk. We've always heard this growing up. Tafakkur qabla talaffuz. Before you say something, think and ponder over it. You ponder about it before you put it into your mind. Unfortunately, we don't have time to transfer that. Whatever comes into the mind, boom, right away, we want to go ahead and make that point so that, someone else does not take this point away from us. And we lose the credit of saying that. So another cure for this illness is thinking before talking. It is a complete manifestation of this kalam. Less or selective speech is a pearl. Is a pearl. We find two narrations in the kalam of Ma'asumeen in this regard. One is a comparison between a mu'min and a munafiq. Second is a comparison between clever and a stupid. And so, the word is aqil and the ahmaq. So I don't know how to translate the word aqil and the ahmaq. So it'll be clever and the stupid. Imam, in the first hadith it says, إن لسان المؤمن وراء قلبه فإذا أراد أن يتكلم بالشيء يدبره بقلبه ثم أمضاه بلسانه وإن اللسان المنافق أمام قلبه فإذا هم بالشيء أمضاه بلسانه ثم لم يدبره بقلبه. He says, Prophet said, indeed, the tongue of a believer is at the back of his heart. Therefore, if he wants to say something, he ponders over it through his heart. In other words, it's a filter by which it passes through and then he utters it. While the tongue of a hypocrite is ahead of his heart. When he speaks, he lets it flying without consulting it with the heart. So this is the difference between mu'min and a munafiq according to Rasul. Second comparison is, he said, lisanul aqil wara qalbihi wa qalbul ahmaq wara lisanihi. He said, a wise man first thinks and then he speaks. A fool speaks first and then thinks of what he has said. So lest we are among those who have said something and then we're thinking, should I really have said that? And then we regret. So if you see that you're regretting a lot after having said something, we are falling under this category of the kalam of ma'soom that is being discussed over here. So we should not be falling in the category of fools. Rather, we should be falling in the category of those who are aqil. So by associating a lie with someone, you can destroy many years of honor. And that is why some of the hadiths tell us that when you backbite or when you spread a rumor about someone falsely, yes, that person loses his integrity and honor, but you also lose your integrity and honor. In fact, that person, when you say something about him, he increases his good deeds. You say, how? He said, because the one who spreads the rumor, all of his good deeds are instantaneously transferred in the record of that individual. You know, boom, one click transfer of the money from here to there. We all use that. Similarly, when I have opened my mouth against someone, spreading a rumor or falsely associating something with them, when they are losing their honor in the eyes of the public, they're in fact gaining a lot of virtues in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? Because all of the good deeds that I have done thus far, if there were any, they're transferred right away into the account of that individual upon whom I was associating those lies with. So we got to be very careful. Not only that this vice or evil has repercussions here, but also in the hereafter, definitely. You know, all of the good work of 50, 60, 70 years by one sentence is transferred, and boom, when you show up in the bargah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, oh Allah, I did all of those good deeds. I performed multiple hajj. I did so many sadaqah. I paid so many. No, nothing. It got transferred over to that individual on that day when you did the ghibat of that person. Right away. There you go. So that's how things melt away. We got to be very careful that we do not burn away, melt away our good deeds that we have worked hard for in all our life to be melted away in a second instantaneously. Salawat bi Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. There are a couple more cures when it comes to this. I'll go through it very quickly so we have completed this subject, because the next ayah that comes about is going towards another topic, and I don't want to leave this behind without having said. One should be wary of being washed at all times. That is very common, so don't really need to explain this in front of you. When we can see this, that, you know, people who are sitting behind the cameras, those who are on TV or on radio, how careful they are when they are saying something. You know, and therefore when you are aware that someone is watching you and someone is listening to you, in this case Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching you and listening to you, you'll be very careful before you say. He's one, la ta'khudhuhu sinatun wala nawm. You and I might fall asleep and might not hear or see what you are doing, but la ta'khudhuhu sinatun wala nawm. There's no, you know, sleeping to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When it comes to nawm, He does not sleep, He does not require any rest, so He's always watching and He's always looking over. And then there's another one which, inshallah, as I'm completely out of my time, we will discuss very briefly initially before we begin the next verse. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the tawfiq to be able to control this tongue, which does not get restless of being used and overused. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the tawfiq to be able to practice sukoot and silence in our daily lives whenever there's a matter which does not require our input or our expertise. We also ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the tawfiq to be able to follow the kalam of Ma'asumeen alayhi salatu wasalam. O Allah, hasten the zuhur of our awaited Imam and make us among the helpers and the soldiers of Imam. Wa akhru dawana anil hamdulillahi rabbil alameen.